Well, hello, campers, and welcome to Camping for Cryptids. I'm Brandon, and you're watching the Cryptid Investigation channel where nothing really seems to happen. Today, we're in the Santa Lucia Mountains, otherwise known as Big Sur, and we're investigating the cryptids known as the Dark Watchers. According to legend, these elusive entities appear on the ridgelines in Big Sur around the hours of early dawn and dusk. Legends of the Dark Watchers date back to Native American times. The Chumash considered these entities to be long-lost ancestors. When early Spanish explorers came to the area, they began to notice these shadows watching them from the forests of the redwoods as well. They called these entities Los Vigilantes Obscuros, the Dark Watchers. According to the stories, these entities are large, somewhere in the range of 10 feet tall. They watch from the ridgeline along the Santa Lucia Mountains, wearing long cloaks, wide-brimmed hats, sometimes carrying staffs. When observers report seeing these Dark Watchers, they say that after trying to approach them or looking at them directly, that they disappear, fading into the shadows. What's even more odd is that they leave no trail or footprints in the areas that they've been spotted. Oftentimes, they appear in places that are inaccessible and out of reach, behind large areas of scrub brush or barbed wire fences. We're finally here. We've made it to Big Sur. You definitely see how gorgeous it is here. The plan is to set up the campsite and make a meal. Then I plan on taking a hike for golden hour. Behind me you can hear the ocean waves. You can smell the salt air. In just a little bit, I'm going to head to the campground. When I get there, I'm going to go ahead and relax for a little while, maybe set up a hammock to take a short nap, and then I'm going to get to cooking. Stick with me. I'm going to give you a rundown of the ingredients, and I'll be back with you soon. Well, welcome to camp, everybody. I'm going to be perfectly honest. I am exhausted from driving all day. So I'm going to go ahead and set up the hammock, and then I'm going to probably catch a quick 40 winks, and then it's going to be time to start dinner. So I will see you then. So while the hammock is quite comfortable for lying down in, I think I'm going to want just a little bit more shelter tonight. So I'm going to go ahead and set up the tent right here because this is kind of the flattest area and it looks like it'll be a pretty comfortable spot. So I'm going to go ahead and start setting the tent up, and it shouldn't take me too long. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and climb in here and give it a shot and see how comfortable it is. Okay, I've definitely had more comfortable sleeps than that. The good news is I'm relatively undamaged, except for my pride. Okay, so what I've got going on here is one of my patented fire starter lint logs amongst a pile of kindling that I found, and I'm gonna go ahead and see if I can get this fire started, and if not, I'm gonna head down to the camp store and we'll buy a fire starter and use that instead. Okay, so wish me luck here. This time it's made from a bunch of dryer lint along with a chipotle bag, so we'll see how that goes. Okay, not quite. Just gonna see if I can get it in there and get the bag caught. Like a charm. While the fire is getting up to temperature, I'm going to go ahead and tell you about our ridgeline ribs and mashed potatoes. So actually I should call them rustic mashed potatoes because they're not going to be quite the normal recipe, and I'm going to tell you how I'm going to do those. So I'm going to take the ribs and sprinkle them generously with salt and pepper. Then I'm going to put them on this rusty piece of metal over here with the membrane side down. I'm going to let it cook for about an hour. Then I'm going to flip it over and give it another 20 to 30 minutes. After that, I'm going to baste it with the barbecue sauce. Now, I am also going to be working on the potatoes during that time. And I'm going to slice the potatoes in half, generously sandwich some butter in between, and then I'm going to wrap those in foil and stick them down in the hot coals. Afterwards, I'm going to put them into a pot and mash them with a little bit more butter and a fork. So, hopefully, everything goes to plan here. Okay, so I'm making these rustic mashed potatoes, and I'm just going to load them up here pretty liberally while I'm waiting for this fire to get down to the burning coals. So I've sliced them in half vertically, and I'm also going to give them a healthy dose of salt and pepper. Here we go. And yeah, just a little more I think should do the trick. And I'm sure the question you're asking yourself is, did he wash those potatoes and scrub them? And the answer is yes. So, all right, we're gonna put a little more salt on this baby. Yeah, all right. I think that should just about do it. Okay, now for the butter. I'm going to take a stick of butter here. Oops. And I'm going to sandwich the stick of butter between the potatoes, but I'm going to cut it up obviously first. And then I'm going to wrap it in tin foil. Sorry, Mom. And then I'm going to put it in the hot coals, assuming there are some in there, for about 1 hour. Okay. Oh. Okay. Whoa! Ah! Ah! 5-second rule. Okay. And I'm just really being careful not to slice the tips of my fingers off here because, as you know, I've had quite a day full of whoopsie doodles. And yeah, definitely don't need to go to the hospital before we can do the investigation portion of tonight's adventure. Okay, so here we go. Now I'm just going to sandwich these guys with this butter here, and it's okay. Now the next step is to wrap this up tightly with foil. All right. There we go. One down. These two halves together. Oh, perfect. Okay. And we'll wrap this one as well, nice and tightly. Yes. Okay. Perfect. Tear along the perforated line here. There we go. All right. So 2 down, 1 to go. So that is all 3 of our potatoes here. And we're going to go ahead and put those down in the fire coals. We're going to go ahead and use these tongs here so as not to burn our delicate little fingers. Whoops, let's put this guy down. Okay, number 2. And number 3. The fire is coming along nice, and I'm about to start the ribs here. And like I said, I'm just going to use salt and pepper. So before I start here, I'm just going to mention that I'm not going to trim off anything like the membrane or anything like that. I'm just going to leave this all on because that's just going to keep the juices inside for us and keep it from getting overdone. Okay, so, and you'll see it'll come out nice. It should anyway, nice and crispy. All right, so I'm just gonna give it a lot of pepper here, and all right. Okay. This campsite is just absolutely gorgeous. You can't see it behind me at the moment, but there's this large sort of earthen wall, and it just seems to stretch all the way up to the sky with the redwoods sticking out, protruding out of it along the sides. Just wonderful. Okay, I'm gonna go pretty good with the salt as well. Okay, there we go. So we're going to go ahead and put these potatoes into this pot, and we're going to add a little butter, and then we're going to mash them on up. All right, so, but we're going to add all that in. Okay, in we go. Just a little. Yes, these are coming out okay. Okay, it is time to flip these ribs over. And yeah.
We're going to cook them for about 20 more minutes after I flip them over here. I'm just going to grab the camera and show you. See the membrane, you can see that, yeah, now we've got this nice coating of membrane that looks nice and crispy. I'm going to put them back over on the heat now, and our ridgeline ribs are coming out fantastic. All right. They got about 20 minutes, and then I'm going to flip them back over and slather them with a little barbecue sauce, and then they're going to be good to go. It's been just about 20 minutes here, so I'm going to go ahead and get ready to slather on our Tony Roma's Carolina honey. That is what they are looking like. And I'm going to move our bowl a little closer here. Hopefully this won't go up in flames while I'm doing this. Okay. And yeah, we're just going to go ahead and slather that barbecue sauce all over these puppies. And then we're going to flip them one more time and let that caramelize before we cut them. I'm only going to cook them for about 5 minutes, and then we're going to let them rest, and then I'm going to rest, and then we're going to go on our golden hour hike investigation for the dark watchers. Okay, that is looking good. We're just going to keep slathering on. You can see it kind of bubbling as it hits the grill. That means the grill's the right temperature here. Make sure to get the edges here. I'm going to give them about 5 minutes longer on the grill, and then they should be done. That should be it. Yeah, that's exactly how it should sound. And here we are. They are very nicely caramelized, and yeah, they've got a nice bend to them. They look like they don't need me to cut them, but I'm going to anyway. I'm going to let them rest for just a minute here, and then we will get started. Oh, I'm going to just look here for the bone. Go ahead and slice in. Yeah. Ooh, they're still just a little warm. That is all right. Yes. Okay. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and stir these up, and they are looking good. And there you have it, campers. Ridgeline ribs with rustic mashed potatoes. Wow. Well, let's give them a shot here, shall we? I'm just going to use my hands. Wow, that is good. Well, one thing's for sure. If there's any dark watchers watching this right now, they're going to be hitting these ridgeline ribs before the sun has set. Let's try these mashed potatoes. They are a-okay. Yeah, these ribs have a smoky sweetness to them. They're crunchy on the outside, and you can just feel the fat melt in your mouth when you bite into them. Absolutely delicious. I want to talk about how the Dark Watchers became famous in popular culture, especially in California. Well, the answer is with this author, very well known throughout the region, John Steinbeck. In particular, this book of short stories titled The Long Valley. In this book of short stories, there's a story called Flight. The story is about a Hispanic family who lives just outside of Monterey, and they send the oldest boy, Pepe, to town in order to buy medicine. Now, Pepe is supposed to spend the night with a family friend. However, when he gets there, it ends up that there's some other visitors who show up and an argument ensues. Pepe uses his father's knife to kill a man, and he, at this point, returns home to tell his mother the sad story of what happened. His mother prepares him by sending him out with the family horse, the family rifle, his father's jacket, and says to him, "Eat a little jerky, and fill thy stomach with grass. When thou comest to the high mountains, if thou seest any of the dark watching men, go not near them, nor try to speak to them, and forget not thy prayers." It turns out that Pepe has to flee into the mountains, and he's being pursued. And sure enough, he does spot one of the Dark Watchers on his journey. The book continues. Pepe looked suspiciously back every minute or so, and so his eyes sought the tops of the ridges ahead. Once, on a white barren spur, he saw a black figure for a moment, but he looked away quickly, for it was one of the Dark Watchers. No one knew who the Watchers were, nor where they lived, but it was better to ignore them and never to show interest in them. They did not bother one who stayed on the trail and minded his own business. Again, John Steinbeck is just an amazing author, and I think it probably goes without saying that things don't turn out well for the hero in our story. It's one of those stories that just sticks with you, haunts you, and you think about for hours, if not days afterwards. So I'm headed down to the camp store to ask for the password for the Wi-Fi, and I also am looking for the location of something called Buzzard's Roost Trail. Now, this is actually my first time here in Big Sur, so I'm not totally familiar with all the surroundings, but one thing that I do have to say is that when they named this place Riverside Campground, they really were not kidding. Ah, yes, Moe's Tavern? I have a question. Is your refrigerator running? Well, you better go and catch it. All right, we are at the Big Sur Lodge, and supposedly the Buzzard's Roost trailhead is right around here somewhere. So that is where we're going tonight for our Ridgeview hike at sunset. So I'm just going to look around for a couple more minutes and hopefully be able to find the trailhead here. All right, but I got to take a rock out of my shoe first. So according to our sign here, Buzzard's Roost Trail is right this way. Okay, this is possibly my favorite investigation so far. Just thinking about these shadowy figures who watch from the ridgeline gives me chills down my spine. There's a couple of good stories that I can share. One of them is of a group of girls who are traveling home on Pacific Coast Highway 1. So as they are on their way home, these girls are listening to music, having a good time, and the conversation dies down, and one of the girls looks out the window to the ridge and sees a shadowy figure with a large, wide-brimmed hat, wearing a black cloak, holding a staff in his hand. As she realizes what she's seeing, she asks her friend to turn and look at the ridgeline as well. She doesn't tell her what to look for. She doesn't describe what she's seeing. She asks her friend then, and she describes seeing the exact same figure with a large hat, wide-brimmed, dark cloak, holding a staff. So on the way home, one of the girls wants to talk about it just a little more, and her friend doesn't want to engage in conversation about it. Almost like what she saw had disturbed her to the extent that she just wanted to pretend it didn't happen. So as I continue to walk along the Buzzard's Roost trailhead, I'm continually scanning the ridgeline behind me for any signs of dark, shadowy figures, but as of yet, I'm not seeing any. But that is to be expected. Another story about the Dark Watchers comes from the late 1800s. It was a time when they were still surveying the land here in the Santa Lucia Mountains. And these surveyors were hired to come to measure boundary lines. They spent several days pulling chains when they first noticed a dark figure watching them from the ridgeline while they were working. As the days passed, the team noticed the dark figure watching them more and more each day in different places, and several members became quite disturbed by the events. It wasn't long until they began to have difficulty sleeping at night, imagining the entity was watching them. One of the men became so agitated, he considered using a rifle to shoot at the Dark Watcher. However, the person in charge of the surveying expedition talked some sense into him and said, "We don't shoot what we don't know." As the days passed, the men grew more and more uneasy until the point that they actually decided to stop working on the job. They packed up their things, and as they were leaving, they looked to the ridgeline to see 3 dark, shadowy figures watching them as they left. So another story of the Dark Watchers comes from John Steinbeck's mother, who was a school teacher in the Big Sur area. Apparently, she would leave gifts for the Dark Watchers as she would go to school each day. There was a special cove where she would hide these gifts along the trail that she walked. When she would come back in the afternoon, she would find that the gifts had been exchanged for different things, such as feathers, seashells, and pine nuts as well. So, in order to continue with that tradition, I brought some things that I thought our Dark Watchers might enjoy. So here in my backpack, I have a few seashells that I picked up while I was in North Carolina. And they are some of my favorites. So I found a small hollow here where it looks like some gifts could be left. And I'm just going to go ahead and give it a try as I leave this here, when I come back down, I'll check this spot again and see maybe they've been exchanged for something else. Well, all I can say is this buzzard better make its roost sometime soon. The sun is almost down, and I'm almost dead. What's this? Here on the ground. It's a bouquet of natural wildflowers. Could it be that a Dark Watcher left this here? Probably not. Well, I definitely get the feeling we're close now. I can see just over here the Pacific Ocean. Absolutely glorious. Well, here we are. We finally made it to the top of old Buzzard's Roost, and not a moment too soon, because the sun is starting to drop down pretty close to the horizon. And that is the time when the Dark Watchers are said to appear along the ridgelines here at Big Sur. So, I'm going to take just a few moments to look out along the ridgeline just as the sun is going down. And then I've got to hightail it out of here, because once it gets dark, I'm really going to have a hard time just making do with the hand flashlight. Well, it's time to head back to camp. I'll see you further down the trail. As I'm walking along on the way home, I might as well tell a couple stories about the Dark Watchers as I hear noises creeping along beside me. The hair on the back of my neck is standing up, and I think it would be a good time to tell about one particular story where a gentleman had been climbing in the Santa Lucia Mountains, and he saw a cave up on the ridgeline. He decided that he would go ahead and climb up a little further, and he saw out of the cave a figure. This was a shadowy figure that, when he waved to it, to his astonishment, it waved back at him. Next, he was so dumbfounded, he decided to light up a cigarette. And as he exhaled, he saw this shadow figure exhale as well. He didn't know what to make of it. Well, campers, I think we can say we found one cryptid. It's a banana slug. Look at that guy go. What a cute little banana slug. Aww. Well, little guy, I gotta say, you have quite an appeal. I'm gonna go ahead and keep telling stories here, because I do hear something in the forest. If I am to be honest, it's probably a bird or a fox or something, but This is mountain lion territory, and better to be safe than sorry. So, I believe this next story takes place sometime in the 1960s, and two guys were driving their Volkswagen Beetle through the Santa Lucia on Pacific Coast Highway 1. At one point, their car started to malfunction. It was acting up, overheating, and they weren't able to drive it any further. And they decided to pull over on the side of the road in a place where they were far miles away from any sort of what we would consider civilization. So the boys decided that they would spend the night there in the car rather than trying to make their way back home. So that's what they did. And after listening to some music and smoking a couple of cigarettes, they decided that they would get ready to go to bed for the night. So as they were getting ready to go to sleep, they looked out the window and they noticed these large, shadowy figures appear one by one. These shadowy figures began to surround the vehicle. They made a circle around the vehicle, and the boys didn't know what to do. At one point, they started to come closer, and they said that these shadows were actually there all night long. But when they woke up in the morning, they were gone. Oh, time to check our cubby stash here. The shells are still here. No exchange tonight. Sorry, campers. Well, welcome back to camp. We're not going to do the fireside chat tonight because the fire went out while I was taking the hike. But I think this will be all right. So there's something in these mountains at night that makes it seem ancient. Something not dangerous, just aware. While I was walking back along the trail after dark, I felt the hair on the back of my neck stand up several times. I didn't see any shadows or things that looked like people, but there were a few times where I did feel like something was watching me. So, tonight I'm camping in Big Sur to look for something that's been reported here for hundreds of years. The Dark Watchers. People hiking along the Santa Lucia Mountains have reported seeing these shadowy figures just watching, standing on distant ridges at dusk. The Chumash people spoke of mysterious figures in the mountains long ago, long before modern sightings, and later settlers reported seeing the same things too. Even writers like John Steinbeck mentioned them. What makes these stories interesting isn't that people saw something, it's that what they reported seeing is all very similar. All the sightings are almost the same. Tall, cloaked, on a ridge, at dusk. While I was walking back at night tonight, I kept thinking how easy it would be to mistake some shadows for a figure, especially when the sun started getting low. But at the same time, why is it that people keep describing the same thing? There's actually an atmospheric phenomenon called the Brocken Spectre. I know that sounds like a German pop band, but it's actually something that happens when the sun casts a shadow into fog or mist and makes it appear much larger than it actually is. I could see that the Brocken Spectre could have worked for at least one of the stories, such as the hiker who saw a figure standing inside of the cave mouth, but the girls traveling home in the car, that doesn't make sense. Well, Big Sur is famous for getting a lot of fog. But here's the part that's even harder to explain. Multiple hikers have said that while they were out in the Santa Lucia Mountains, they felt observed. And I have to admit, walking home tonight, there was a strange feeling that started to come over you at dark, seeing things along the ridgeline. Your brain starts to fill in shapes. Your imagination starts working overtime. Every shadow feels like it's intentional. And that's exactly how stories like this survive. I don't know if the Dark Watchers are creatures. I don't know if they're just shadows. I don't know if they're some kind of polarized energy. But I do think that places hold stories. When enough people experience something similar, even if it is just a perception, it starts to become part of the landscape. Maybe the Watchers aren't something out there. They're part of what happens when fog, imagination, and fears all meet. Well, I didn't see anything tonight, but I will say this. If I do see a shadow move, I'll probably look twice. If you've ever hiked Big Sur and seen something strange, I'd like to hear about it as well. Because whether it's a shadow or something else, these mountains are watching. And perhaps the real cryptids are the friends that we meet along the way. Well, at the end of a day of searching for the Dark Watchers, there's nothing to quite help you relax and clear your mind like playing a video game called the Shadow People. Video games today sure have come a long way since the days of Oregon Trail, back on the old Apple IIe. Some researchers study folklore, some analyze historical records, and some wander down digital hallways looking to get a jump scare. Okay, that was unnecessary. Every cryptid investigator has their own investigation style. Mine's playing video games and hoping Bigfoot comes out to nerd bond with me. Speaking of crashing, it's been quite a while since I've had sleep, so I think I'm going to call it a day here. See you in the morning, campers. Well, good morning, everybody. I slept like a log last night. It was absolutely beautiful here, sleeping out under the stars in the redwoods. I did get woken up one time by a skunk, and he was a good boy, though. He left the camp without any spraying, so I was thankful for that. Um, so, checkout time is supposed to be 11, but they just came by and said try to check out by 11:30, which is great because they must have seen that I was just in here just snoozing away. Everyone else has already gone and packed up for the day. I'm the last one left. So I'm going to go ahead, get this place packed up, and I will see you on the road. I'd like to take the time to say thank you for all of you who have taken the time to like and subscribe to this channel. I do appreciate it. Every single subscription, every single like, every single comment on a video, I really do appreciate sincerely. And it helps me to continue the feeling of getting out here and searching for the unknown, the strange, the non-existent, because I see your enthusiasm and I become excited for the next adventure as well. So keep on watching, and until then, keep camping for cryptids.